The Core Leader, The Life and Vision of Xi Jinping, read and published by Mr. Books. In the 21st century, few leaders have fundamentally altered the course of a nation and, by extension, the world more than Xi Jinping. His tenure as the paramount leader of the People's Republic of China marks a dramatic epoch defined by sweeping changes in domestic administration, tightly consolidated political power, assertive foreign policy, and an effort to immortalize his own vision for the Chinese state. The story of Xi Jinping is not merely the chronicle of one individual's ascent to power. It is, more strikingly, a lens through which the hopes, anxieties, and strategic ambitions of modern China are refracted. Born to a revolutionary family, but cast early into the throes of political uncertainty, Xi's journey blends resilience, political acumen, and a near-mythic sense of historical mission. From the rigors of the Cultural Revolution, which saw his father's fall from grace and his own rural re-education, to his rise through the party's labyrinthine hierarchy, Xi's experience reflects both personal struggle and adaptive pragmatism, duality that would later define his approach as a leader. This book sets out to chart the intricate landscapes Xi Jinping has navigated. Chapters 6, 7, and 8, the focus of this exploration, move beyond biography into the heart of Xi's enduring impact, his remarkable consolidation of power, his campaign to reshape China's position in a shifting global order, and the enigmatic questions that linger over his legacy. In examining his strategies to navigate internal dissent, the rigorous mechanisms through which he has enforced unity, and the outward projection of Chinese strength, we uncover both the foundations and repercussions of his principal decisions. Furthermore, these chapters interrogate the essential contradictions at play, the drive for absolute control versus the necessity for innovation, the outward pursuit of global leadership versus the inward compulsion for ideological orthodoxy, and the promise of a Chinese dream against the realities of complex domestic and international challenges. Xi Jinping's era is still unfolding. As such, any inquiry into his life and vision must remain alert to the dynamism, uncertainty, and volatility that define both the man and his nation. Through careful study rich in historical detail, political context, and comprehensive analysis, following sections invite readers to grapple with the questions of legacy, leadership, and the very future of China itself. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button to support the channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an audiobook that could change your life. Now, let's begin. Enjoy. Chapter 1. Foundations. Early life and family legacy. Crucible of history often forges its most consequential leaders through adversity, and Xi Jinping is no exception. Born in June 1953 in Beijing, Xi was born into a family already bearing remarkable influence within the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, yet one destined to endure both the heights of privilege and the depths of political purgatory. His father, Shi Zhongxun, was a revered revolutionary leader, a man whose contributions to the party's victory in 1949 earned him high station in the infant People's Republic. But as with so many luminaries of the revolutionary generation, the winds of Chinese politics changed swiftly and without mercy. In his earliest years, Xi Jinping experienced the benefits of lineage. The halls of Zhongnanai, Beijing's political epicenter, were open to him. His childhood, shaped within the throes of ideological fervor, was paradoxically privileged yet precarious. The events of the late 1950s, especially Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward and ensuing famines, served as an ominous backdrop for the privileged offspring of the party elite. Still, the insulation afforded by his father's position buffered Xi from many of the era's hardships. This buffer, however, would collapse with the coming of the Cultural Revolution in 1966. Shi Zhongxun, once a hero of the revolution, was branded a capitalist roader and purged. The family was torn asunder. Xi's mother faced public humiliation. His half-sister is said to have died as a result of persecution. Xi became a teenager under suspicion and marginalization. From this fall came early lessons in resilience. The trajectory of Xi's youth was irreversibly altered. At 15, Xi Jinping was dispatched to Liangjia, a remote village in Shaanxi province, as part of Mao's movement to send urban youth down to the countryside to learn from the peasants. For 7 formative years in which many of his peers and contemporaries struggled, and some collapsed under psychological pressure Xi endured. He toiled in fields, lived in cave dwellings, and confronted the daily grind of rural life. In later years, Xi would repeatedly reference his experiences in Liangjia, framing them as the crucible in which his character and his view of China's real challenges were forged. He learned to listen, to manage village committees, and most importantly, to adapt. This period would become a foundational narrative, one that Xi has repeatedly emphasized: the leader who truly understands the masses because he toiled among them. But the legend, however politically useful, is grounded in genuine hardship. He faced rejection even when first applying to join the CCP, viewed with suspicion due to his red but tainted family background. Persistent, Xi finally gained party membership after repeated attempts, a milestone marking his return to the movement that his father had so consequentially helped to shape. Xi Jinping's formative years thus present a study in persistence and adaptation. Through shifting tides of favor and misfortune, he internalized the rhythms of party life, the demands of discipline, and the dangers of falling out of political grace. These lessons, scarred into his worldview, would shape the ambitions, policies, and priorities of his later years. In understanding Xi's early life, we glimpse the seeds of both his resilience and his relentless focus on party unity, traits that would become hallmarks of his leadership as the core leader of modern China. Chapter 2: Trials by Fire. Struggle and rise through the party ranks. Odyssey from rural obscurity to the apex of Chinese power is neither straightforward nor assured. It demands a blend of endurance, strategic calculation, and an acute sense of timing. The years following Xi Jinping's return from Liangjia were marked by precisely such navigation. Xi, having weathered the storms of his family's political disgrace, emerged with a resolute sense of mission to redeem both his family name and his place within the Communist Party. Xi's initiation into the party proper, while momentous, was only the beginning. China in the 1970s was a nation in flux, reeling from the excesses of the Cultural Revolution and tentatively stepping into the era of reform. After his acceptance, Xi secured admission to Tsinghua University in Beijing, a prestigious institution long favored by the party elite. There, he specialized in chemical engineering, but the true value of his years at Tsinghua lay in the networks he would develop, relationships with fellow princelings and officials who would later prove pivotal in his ascent. Upon graduation, Xi consciously eschewed the capital's comforts. Intent on building a reputation independent from his father's shadow, he set his sights on China's provinces. His first real tests came in Hebei and later in Fujian, populations and problems far removed from the rarefied air of Zhongnanai. In Hebei, he served as party secretary in a rural county, navigating famine recovery and infrastructural neglect. Here, Xi exhibited a penchant for pragmatic, hands-on governance, inspecting fields, overseeing public works, and focusing on basic economic advancement. Fujian, with its strategic position along the coast and its proximity to Taiwan, would become Xi's crucible of governance for almost 2 decades. He embraced assignments regarded as challenging or unglamorous, overseeing counties, and then ascending to important roles in Fuzhou and Xiamen. His tenure was defined by a relentless campaign against corruption, a problem endemic in the dizzying swirl of China's coastal opening. She took risks, launching anti-graft investigations, disciplining local cadres, and projecting an image of incorruptibility, sometimes at odds with the less scrupulous elements entrenched in the local party. Apparatus. Xi's reform-minded practicality was matched by loyalty to central authority. As the Deng Xiaoping era unfolded, prioritizing reform and opening up, Xi mastered the art of policy implementation, translating abstract party directives into local realities. He championed modest but effective economic development initiatives, streamlined bureaucracies, and attracted foreign investment, all the while reinforcing the ideological primacy of the party. What set Xi apart was his ability to blend the hard, often harsh legacy of his rural experiences with the technocratic expertise gained at Tsinghua and his innate sense of political theater. He cultivated a reputation as both a man of the people and a stern, unbending party loyalist. This tightrope walk enabled him to grow in stature, weather periodic political storms, and earn the confidence of the highest echelons. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, he continued to climb, moving from Fujian to Zhejiang, a province renowned for entrepreneurial dynamism and complex governance challenges. Here, Xi won praise for his adept handling of economic and social transitions. He balanced rapid economic growth with social stability, a delicate feat demanding both vision and vigilance. Xi's journey through the party ranks was, in essence, a series of trials by fire. He proved himself over and over through tough assignments, anti-corruption campaigns, and adaptability to national priorities. The incremental victories of these decades, often unheralded, built a foundation of trust that would serve him and the party in the years of turbulence and opportunity that lay ahead. Chapter 3. A New Dawn. Ascension to National Leadership. By the dawn of the 21st century, Xi Jinping's rise had taken on an unmistakable momentum. No longer a provincial official, he was now a figure observed closely by the inner circles of the Communist Party, and, increasingly, by international analysts trying to discern China's future trajectory. From Zhejiang, Xi moved on to even more prominent posts. His appointment as the party secretary of Shanghai in 2007, then the most cosmopolitan and economically significant city in China, marked a pivotal turning point. Although his tenure in Shanghai lasted less than a year, it proved consequential. The previous secretary had been removed in a corruption scandal, and Xi's reputation for probity and decisive action made him an ideal choice to restore order and confidence. He consolidated support among Shanghai's tangled networks of business and officialdom, while never deviating from the script of party orthodoxy, a balancing act that required remarkable political acumen. In the same year, Xi was appointed as a member of the Politburo Standing Committee, China's highest decision-making body. The pace of his ascent accelerated. In 2008, Xi became Vice President of the People's Republic, a role that conferred visibility at home and abroad and positioned him as heir apparent to then-President Hu Jintao. Over the course of the next few years, he was entrusted with a dizzying array of responsibilities, orchestrating preparations for the 2008 Beijing Olympics, managing internal party affairs, and undertaking high-profile international diplomacy. Xi's selection as China's top leader in 2012 was not merely the result of personal ambition or family legacy. It was the culmination of an intricate, decades-long process. The party's emphasis on collective leadership and consensus building had, in theory, promoted stability, but also, critics argued, a measure of drift and hesitancy, particularly as China's societal transition accelerated. The era called for a figure who could project authority, enforce discipline, and articulate a vision bold enough to match the country's rising global profile. Xi Jinping embodied that call, upon becoming General Secretary of the CCP, and soon after President of China, Xi lost no time in defining his era. His rhetoric invoked both the grandeur of China's historical civilization and the urgency of its continued national rejuvenation. The notion that China was standing on the threshold of greatness, yet threatened by corruption, stagnation, and the ideological dilution of the party would become the cornerstone of his leadership. Narrative. Xi began to assert a style distinct from his predecessors. Where Hu Jintao had preferred cautious consensus, Xi projected unmistakable authority. He swiftly initiated an anti-corruption campaign unprecedented in both scale and severity, targeting thousands of officials across all levels. This campaign was as much about cleaning house as it was about consolidating power. By removing rivals and reasserting central control, Xi sought to ensure the party's survival in his own mandate. Moreover, Xi revitalized party ideology, reintroducing the language of struggle, discipline, and core leadership. He centralized policymaking through small leading groups, effectively bypassing some traditional channels and placing key decisions firmly under his direct supervision. The tempo of reform quickened. Economic restructuring, military modernization, and social policy adjustments moved forward in harmony with an unmistakable reassertion of party control over every domain. In this new dawn, Xi Jinping cast himself as both the architect and the custodian of China's future. His ascent to national leadership was not just a change of guard. It was a seismic realignment of the party, the state, and the social contract binding the people and their government. Under Xi, China's journey as well as its ambitions entered a new era, one defined by the vision and will of the core leader. Chapter 4. Steering the Dragon, Economics and Modernization. Under Xi, the arrival of Xi Jinping at the summit of Chinese politics coincided with a moment of profound economic reckoning. After decades of double-digit growth powered by export-led industrialization, China had emerged as the world's second-largest economy. Yet beneath the headline numbers lay a host of structural challenges: slowing growth, rising local government debt, overcapacity in state-owned enterprises, and a widening chasm of inequality. Xi, grasped from the outset at steering the dragon, required nimble adaptation rather than blind faith in past formulas. He made clear that high-quality growth would supplant unrestrained expansion. To this end, his administration introduced a sweeping agenda known as the New Normal, which prioritized innovation, environmental protection, and consumption-driven growth over brute force investment. This approach represented a significant recalibration of China's economic engine. On the macroeconomic front, Xi ushered in a new wave of reforms with the 2013 Third Plenum of the 18th Central Committee. Key policy statements emphasized the decisive role of market forces balanced, however, by the unyielding guidance of party oversight. The duality of reform under Xi was unmistakable. Financial markets were liberalized in some areas, such as interest rates and foreign investment, even as capital controls and restrictions on digital platforms were tightened elsewhere. The overall message was clear. Modernization did not mean Western-style liberalization. The party would remain the ultimate leader. State-owned enterprises, SOEs, became both engines and symbols of Xi's economic vision. Recognizing the need for greater efficiency and global competitiveness, Xi championed the consolidation of SOEs, elevating key national champions into global giants in sectors ranging from energy to infrastructure. At the same time, he rolled out a suite of Made in China 2025 initiatives aimed at positioning China at the technological forefront of advanced manufacturing, robotics, and artificial intelligence. Equally significant was Xi's commitment to addressing inequality and environmental degradation. Urbanization policies sought to integrate hundreds of millions of rural residents into city life with improved social benefits. Targeted poverty alleviation campaigns were launched with extraordinary intensity, culminating in the party's declaration in 2021 that absolute poverty had been eliminated, a point much debated but never ignored. Environmental policy shifted from rhetorical pledges to tough enforcement, with pollution controls and renewable energy investments, fundamentally altering the country's industrial landscape. Perhaps the signature initiative of Xi's economic modernization was the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Announced in 2013, BRI envisioned a web of infrastructure, trade, and investment projects connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe. Ostensibly about connectivity and shared development, it was, in practice, a bold extension of China's economic influence and, by extension, Xi's own geopolitical vision. Underpinning all these efforts was a relentless affirmation of the party's centrality. Xi championed supply-side structural reform, fixated on controlling risk in the financial and real estate sectors, and managed crackdowns on large technology firms to reassert political control over key sectors. The overall strategy was unmistakable: balance modernization and efficiency with robust political order. Markets would serve the party's vision, not the other way around. Xi Jinping's economic stewardship, thus, has been an exercise in navigating paradox. His approach coupled ambition with caution, vision with vigilance. He has sought to modernize and globalize China, yet always under the banner of the party's leadership, steering the dragon with a steady but unyielding hand. Chapter 5. Ideology Reimagined. Xi Jinping Thought and Party Discipline. Xi Jinping's leadership represents not merely a shift in tone or emphasis, but an overhaul of ideological foundation within the Chinese Communist Party. His ascension brought about not only new policies, but also an audacious recentering of Marxist-Leninist orthodoxy. Tailored for the 21st century superpower China was becoming, a key instrument in this ideological revitalization is Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, enshrined into the party constitution during the 19th National Congress in 2017. This doctrine elevated Xi to a stature reserved only for Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. Xi Jinping thought is not a single policy or program. It is better understood as a sweeping worldview, one that seeks to chart the course for China's great rejuvenation and restore what Xi regards as the historic role of the Communist Party as moral and political vanguard. Central themes of this ideological reimagining include the absolute leadership of the party, the integration of economic modernization with core socialist values, a new era of national self-confidence, and a rejection of Western-style pluralism. Critical to Xi's vision is the idea that only the party, disciplined and united around a strong core, can navigate China through internal complexities and an often hostile international environment. The practical dimensions of this ideology extend into every facet of governance. Xi's tenure has seen the intensification of internal party discipline. The Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, CCDI, has become an even more formidable organ, empowered to investigate, detain, and punish officials at all levels. Party members are subjected to rigorous scrutiny, regular ideological training, and self-criticism sessions designed to reaffirm loyalty and root out dissent. Throughout his reign, Xi has also presided over a broader cultural tightening. The media, arts, and even academia have all come under heightened supervision. The once vibrant online public sphere blogs, social media platforms, and forums has been brought under strict control, with new legal frameworks reinforcing the party's narrative supremacy. Patriotism is promoted as a civic value. but it is always understood as allegiance first and foremost to the party's vision. Ideological vigilance under Xi is as much a matter of personal legacy as of institutional necessity. To maintain the cohesion of a ruling elite overseeing the world's most populous nation, and to avoid the fate of the Soviet Union, whose collapse Xi frequently cites as a cautionary tale, the party must, in Xi's telling, maintain red. Gene purity. Never forget the original intention became a watchword, signaling both a return to revolutionary roots and a warning against complacency or corruption. The result is a China marching to a carefully constructed ideological anthem, one that binds bureaucrats, military officers, entrepreneurs, and students alike to a vision of national greatness. For Xi, the rejuvenation of China is inextricably linked to the unchallenged leadership and ideological clarity of the Communist Party. In so doing, he has recast not merely party discipline, but the very identity of the world's most enduring single-party state. Chapter 6. Power Consolidation. Navigating Challenges and Opposition. Xi Jinping's consolidation of power stands as one of the most defining hallmarks of his leadership. To understand the mechanisms and depth of this consolidation requires uncovering the layered complexities, political, institutional, and psychological, that Xi deftly navigated to assert and maintain control over the party, the military, and ultimately the nation. Far from an inevitable process, Xi's pathway to supreme leadership was fraught with calculated risks, formidable opponents, and the ever-present specter of party factionalism. The elimination of factional rival Xi's ascension was immediately followed by a campaign of unprecedented party discipline, targeting not only corruption, but also potential rivals. The takedown of high-ranking figures such as Zhou Yongkang, the former security chief and Politburo Standing Committee member, sent seismic tremors throughout the party apparatus. Official rhetoric focused on rooting out corruption, but the campaign's scope and targets suggested a broader objective: dismantling rival power bases within the party, particularly those associated with ex-President Jiang Zemin's Shanghai clique and other influential factions. The message was unambiguous. No one, regardless of rank or allegiance, was beyond the reach of Xi's vision for party unity and discipline. The ripple effect was profound. It fostered a climate of fear, caution, and for many, realignment behind Xi's core leadership. Restructuring command parallel to these purges, Xi undertook the systematic restructuring of key institutions. Nowhere was this more evident than in the People's Liberation Army, PLA. Through a sweeping series of reorganizations, Xi not only modernized the military, but also ensured his direct oversight. Long-standing officers known for their loyalty to previous leaders were retired or ousted, replaced by those who owed their positions and their future to Xi's patronage. The Central Military Commission was refashioned into both a modern war command and a bulwark of Xi's personal authority. Anti-corruption campaign within the military further reinforced this transformation. By the time his reforms were underway, Xi had not only reigned in the influence of big tigers, but also instilled a new ethos: loyalty to the core leader. Above all, controlling the narrative. It is not enough to centralize power. It must also be legitimized. Xi proved highly attentive to commanding the ideological and media landscapes. Through a restructured propaganda apparatus and unyielding censorship, the party under Xi reasserted its control over both traditional and digital spheres. A series of new laws and regulations were enacted to monitor and, where necessary, silence the voices of dissent, including prominent intellectuals, journalists, and online influencers. Combined with a sweeping social credit system and high-tech surveillance, China's public square was reshaped into a tightly regulated space for ideologically approved discourse. Institutional reforms and administrative centralization. Xi further integrated party leadership into nearly all layers of government. blurring, sometimes erasing, the distinction between state and party. Numerous, leading small groups were established under his direct supervision, breaking down traditional governance silos and ensuring decisions would align with his broader strategic vision. From economic planning to cybersecurity, the locus of authority steadily migrated toward the party's uppermost echelon and, ultimately, to Xi himself. Balancing reform with orthodoxy, consolidating power in a nation as vast and varied as China requires more than a display of strength. It requires mobilizing a narrative that fuses past glories, present achievements, and future aspirations. Xi's doctrine enshrined as Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era became both the ideological bedrock and the rallying cry for his consolidation campaign. However, the very success of these efforts has stoked their own form of resistance. Whispered doubts about over-centralization, policy inertia, and a shrinking sphere for entrepreneurial dynamism have emerged among reformists, even as hardliners applaud new fortifications against perceived Western threats. In sum, Xi Jinping's consolidation of power was neither accidental nor cosmetic. It was the product of calculated resolve, systematic restructuring, and a relentless drive to leave no room for alternative centers of gravity. The long-term implications, both for China's governance and for Xi's own legacy, continue to unfold, shaping the future as much as the present. Chapter 7. China and the World: Diplomacy, Assertiveness, and Global Strategy. As China has transformed into a global powerhouse, Xi Jinping has fundamentally reshaped the nation's approach to the world stage. Gone is the era of hide your capabilities, bide your time, the dictum of Deng Xiaoping. Under Xi's stewardship, China has moved from cautious participation toward proactive engagement, assertiveness, and even outright confrontation in the international arena. This pivotal shift encompasses multiple dimensions, from economic statecraft to military posture, global governance, and ideological projection. The Belt and Road Initiative, ambition on a global scale, no policy, exemplifies Xi's global vision. More than the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Announced in 2013, the BRI has evolved into a vast network of infrastructure projects, trade corridors, and financial investments linking Asia, Africa, Europe, and beyond. For Xi, the BRI is more than economic diplomacy. It is a grand strategy to re-anchor global trade flows toward China, secure vital resources, and cultivate durable spheres of influence. Through the BRI, Chinese corporations, often state-backed, have developed ports, railways, energy projects, and digital infrastructure. In doing so, Beijing has positioned itself as the indispensable partner for the developing world, while presenting an alternative to Western-centric models of globalization. The expansion of this economic footprint has reinforced China's claim to leadership in the community of common destiny, a phrase Xi has employed to signify the nation's aspiration for a central role in global affairs. Diplomacy and assertiveness. From the South China Sea to the UNXI's tenure also marks a more vocal, assertive defense of China's core interests. Nowhere is this more visible than in the South China Sea, where artificial islands, military installations, and regular naval patrols have cemented Chinese claims against competing regional actors and rebuked international arbitration. The wolf warrior style of diplomacy, marked by strident rhetoric and aggressive rebuttals of criticism, embodies a new confidence, if not swagger, in China's global posture. China's influence within global institutions has also steadily increased. Under Xi's leadership, China has expanded its presence within the United Nations and related agencies, seeking both to reform international norms and to limit the influence of adversaries. At the same time, Beijing has launched parallel organizations, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, signaling a willingness to play by its own rules when necessary. Great power competition. The United States, and beyond Xi Jinping's approach to great power relations, particularly with the United States, has appended decades of careful, if tentative, engagement. Xi has been unflinching in articulating core interests, from Taiwan to Hong Kong, Xinjiang to technological sovereignty, and in preparing China for what he foresees as a prolonged period of struggle with the West. Trade tensions, technological decoupling, and ideological rivalry have intensified under his watch. China's ambition is not merely to rise within the existing system, but increasingly to shape the architecture of global governance in accordance with its own priorities and values. Ideological projection and the China model, beyond infrastructure. And statecraft, she sees China's ascension as unveiling a new developmental paradigm, one that prioritizes stability, economic growth, and centralized guidance over liberal democracy. State media, Confucius institutes, and diplomatic missions have coordinated efforts to promote the China model, positing it as a legitimate alternative for the world, particularly for post-colonial states seeking rapid modernization without sacrificing sovereignty. Challenges and resilience, yet this assertiveness has not gone uncontested. Backlashes including allegations of debt trap diplomacy, accusations of human rights abuses, and deepening strategic mistrust have triggered realignments and pushback, especially among developed nations. Nevertheless, Xi's China has shown remarkable resilience. Through diverse alliances, economic statecraft, and digital diplomacy, it has weathered storms and continued its dramatic ascent. In sum, Xi Jinping's approach represents a profound recalibration of China's international identity, no longer a bystander or junior partner, but a principal architect, challenger, and if successful standard bearer of a new world order. Chapter 8. Future Horizons. Legacy, Unanswered Questions, and China's Path Forward. As of the publication of this book, the narrative of Xi Jinping and of modern China remains fundamentally open-ended. With his ideological imprint indelibly stamped across the party, state, and society, Xi's name has come to symbolize both a certain kind of strength and an inescapable set of contradictions. The challenge now is to discern where his legacy leads, how his vision will be tested by the realities of an increasingly complex world, and what unanswered questions linger beneath the surface of apparent order, the ambiguities of legacy. Xi's legacy is already monumental. He has architected sweeping reforms, reoriented the party toward perpetual self-renewal, and reimagined China's place in the world. His Chinese dream promises national rejuvenation, technological ascendancy, and the restoration of China's rightful stature. All this, however, comes at the price of a political system that brooks little dissent, a society increasingly monitored by advanced surveillance, and economic policies that sometimes struggle to overcome inertia and inefficiency. Will Xi Jinping be remembered as the architect of a stable, innovative superpower? Or will the rigidities and risks of over-centralization undermine the adaptability so critical to sustained success? In this respect, he is both the author of China's rise and the custodian of its future uncertainties. Unanswered questions. Reform, innovation, and dissent. China's future hinges on difficult balances between state control and market flexibility, security and openness, tradition and modernity. Xi's drive for ideological unity and anti-corruption discipline has strengthened institutional coherence, but has also constricted the space for dissent and experimentation. Questions remain about the viability of the current growth model. Can China leap from manufacturing dominance to technological innovation? Will efforts to reduce over-reliance on Western technology succeed? and at what cost to entrepreneurial dynamism? Furthermore, as younger generations come of age, will calls for greater political and cultural freedoms grow louder than the appeals to unity and order? The world responds. Geopolitics and strategic flux on the global stage. China's trajectory under Xi faces mounting friction. Trade disputes, technological competition, and military tensions continue to shape the environment. The durability of China's new alliances, the sustainability of BRI projects amid debt and backlash, and the ability to mediate escalating crises all pose real tests. Whether China can maintain constructive relationships amid strategic rivalry, while avoiding the so-called Thucydides trap of great power confrontation, remains uncertain. The path forward, renewal or regression? At the heart of China's path forward lies the question of adaptability. Throughout its long history, China has alternated between periods of unyielding centralization and moments of pragmatic reform. Xi Jinping's model is built on the promise that strong leadership and ideological clarity can reconcile unity with progress. But as the world enters a new era of disordered technological, environmental, demographic, China's continued rise will demand both resilience and flexibility. In the end, Xi's true legacy will depend not on the achievements already codified, but on the choices, incremental or transformative, that confront leaders, citizens, and the party itself in the years to come. Is the era of the core leader China's apogee or its prelude to further transformation? That question, like the future of China itself, remains unfinished, waiting to be written in the pages ahead. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button to support the channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an audiobook that could change your life. Now, let's begin. Enjoy.